Later on in the show, I'm going to go through a few of the most pressing questions for the Eagles this offseason, just as I did last week with Sheil Kapadia from The Ringer, who joined me. We went through 20 Eagles questions. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper on a few of those because we sort of went through those really quickly. But this week's episode is all about one of the more overlooked positions in football. And when we think of special teams, we tend really to only look at them when it's a negative. And last year for the Eagles, that really was not the case. You can't say that about a lot of the past maybe 10 years or so, but last year, certainly a positive for the Eagles special teams. We know Jake Elliott, one of the best kickers in the NFL, and it looks like they've got themselves a keeper at punter. That's Braden Mann. He ranked 5th in the NFL in net yardage last year. And we know that they have struggled as a unit, and they've certainly struggled at punter over the last several years. So nice to have some stability at that position. But they've also found someone who genuinely cares about the community, which he'll talk about here in this interview. My name is Pat Gallen. This is a Gallen of Questions. I sit down with Eagles punter Braden Mann. Braden, thanks for sitting down with us. It's good to see you. How you enjoying your off season?
It's
where
great.
The craziness starts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good taking this kind of time, and beautiful weather right now, so I'm excited for it. I love the summertime, and being here with everybody has been great.
What's on the docket outside of football for your summer?
A lot of golf, a lot of hanging out with my wife. Yeah, this is a perfect time for it. So other than that, just hanging out and kind of taking in everything that's until everything gets really busy.
You're the punter of the Philadelphia Eagles. Take us back, because I like to get the backstory of people. Like, how do you become a punter? Is it something that you knew like from a young age, or was it something that you kind of grew into?
Yeah, I always played football my whole life. I played linebacker most of my life, and then I got a few injuries, had a few back injuries, fractures, and so I had to choose something else that wasn't quite as contact heavy. So I started kicking field goals, and then got offered to kick field goals in college. Then when I got to college, pretty much went full punter, and then I took it and rolled it from there.
So you just were like messing around with kicking and it kind of stuck, or was that?
Yeah, I always kind of did it, like for the team, like whatever team it was, like my middle school team, high school team, I just kind of did it. And then once I had to make a switch, then I fully committed to it. But I grew up doing Taekwondo, so I was always good with my feet and just coordinated lower body wise. So that's what kind of led into me loving the kicking and punting part of it.
That's interesting. You mentioned back fractures. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
What happened there?
My first one was in 8th grade. I was making a tackle, and I just kind of I didn't see somebody, and it went the wrong way. And then it happened again my sophomore year of high school when I was doing squatting. So, yeah, all that kind of good stuff.
Safe to say maybe that was like the best injury you ever had?
It
led you to where you are right now? That's kind of crazy how things go.
Yeah, looking back, I'm glad it happened.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So college, you become one of the best punter in all of college. What sort of work goes into becoming the best punter, not only like in your conference or your school, but the entire country? That's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot at once. Definitely a lot of boring work, a lot of stuff that people don't like doing, and I don't like doing, but you got to kind of do it. It's a lot of just like little things. It's not the most physically talented position ever, maybe.
Wow, come on.
I don't know if you've seen the rest of the guys on the team.
I guess
I don't look or run like them. So,
sure.
I'm not quite big and strong like everybody else, but it's just a lot of like very detailed work that I try to do.
Yeah. What sort of like practice goes into it behind the scenes that people aren't seeing?
A lot of dropping the football.
That's it.
Because that's pretty much half my job. It's literally walking for a mile, just dropping the same football, making it as close as you can to the same every time.
Have you counted your steps? Is that what it is, like a mile?
Well, yeah, I used to do like 300 to 500 drops just like in a row, and so that would end up being, I'd walk down throughout the neighborhood, and I would just say, oh wow, look at that, I walked about a mile doing it. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's the tedious work to get you to where you want to be. Yeah. Where a lot of people are, look, when you're playing at Texas A&M or you're playing at a huge school, like, you've got to put in that work to become one of the best. Was there ever a time where you're like, this is a lot, man? Like, of course I want to be the best. I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
But did it ever get, like, overbearing, especially when you're a college-age kid?
Oh, yeah, plenty. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you're taking on a lot at once. And, when you get up at 5 or whatever it is when you're a freshman doing the early workouts, you're like, man, do I have to do this again? But yeah, you just take one day at a time and enjoy the things while you can. If you just can make it enjoyable, it makes it so much easier and so much more fun.
Talk about the transition then from college to the pros. Like, how different is it? How much of a loop were you thrown for when you took the leap?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still football. It's still, if you can play ball, you can play ball. And but I think the different part of it was it becomes your full-time job.
Yeah.
And so there's a fine balance there between making it all you think about every day, and then having time away where you want to get away from it as well. And then when you're in the building, when you're doing your work, you are fully committed and don't think about anything else. But then when you're away, you also got to be completely away from it. I think that was kind of the tough adjustment at first, was because then I had nothing else. I didn't have school to think about. I just had football. And so I needed to pick up different hobbies to try and at least get myself, when I'm away from the building, be with my family or friends and just be where my feet are.
How long did it take you to realize that? You needed that time away? After
my first year and a half probably in the NFL, I started to really commit to, being where my feet are. And if I'm in the building, be there. And if I'm not, I'm really not. So
you started with the Jets. You were there, went to the Steelers briefly. What do you think the biggest difference is in this building compared to those buildings? Like, what makes this place so special?
The culture here is I walked in the building and I felt like I'd been here for months. It was really cool. Everyone seemed so close here, and I wasn't here during the summer last year for OTAs or camp or anything, so I didn't really see all of the connecting that goes on in the off season. And I think that is something that here they would do really well. When we're away from the building, we're still hanging out with everybody, trying to get with our wives and kids together, just trying to connect outside of the building when we're away. So I think they do a really good job of that here, and I'm just now experiencing that for the first time because this is my first off season. So
what's it like working with Jake, who's one of the best at his position, and then Rick as well? You guys are really close in that special teams room, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch somebody who's so good at their craft, and Rick and Jake are both those guys. And it's fun. We have a lot in common. We have a lot of fun, and then we have a lot of fun on the field as well. So, yeah, it's a great time with those two.
And being a former field goal kicker yourself, do you ever give Jake tips? Is he ever asking you?
He does not. I would never ever give Jake a tip of kicking ever. He can give me as many as he wants. Yeah, I still like to understand the kicking part of it because it helps me do my job for him, holding a little bit better. So I like to understand as much as I can about kicking. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting too, holding, because everyone just thinks grab the ball, put it down, the guy kicks it, but there's a lot more to it. So what's going through your head in a moment like that? Like, say last year, Buffalo, for instance. It's pouring rain. It's ridiculous. The wind is crazy. What's going through your mind? You have like a mental checklist that you go through every time?
Yeah, we do. I mean, that one is very weather dependent. And so you got to take into account, wind, rain, all that stuff. But in the moment, I try not to think about too much. That's what practice and all that for is. There's a time to overthink and try to correct things, and then there's a time in games where it's just time to go out and show what you've been practicing. So when I get in games, either it's punting or holding, I just try to go blank about most things. Obviously, there's some adjustments you got to make, but yeah, I just try to go out and have fun when we're actually in the game. And so does Jake.
Is there an ideal condition for you? Like, what do you like as a punter? A little bit of wind at your back? Like, what's the best? Or anything? It's just like, put me out there.
I mean, ideally indoors would be great. 75 and no wind would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, it never hurts to have a little bit of wind at your back. And I started to kind of get used to the elements when I got up to New York for the first time. I grew up in Texas and went to college in Texas, so
just hot and
the coldest
humid.
I ever played in was like 45, and that changed really quickly when I got in the NFL.
Sure, yeah, so that'll throw you for a loop as well. So the reason I wanted to connect with you is because you're doing a lot with the KB Foundation. They're doing a lot of great things throughout Philadelphia. The first thing you did with them was pretty cool. Talk about that and the sneakers with Lapstone and Hammer.
Yeah, so I got in contact with the KB Foundation and I went to their event. They basically had a bunch of blank sneakers, and one of the companies that does our custom cleats, it's Stadium Custom Kicks. So they brought a bunch of shoes and a bunch of paint, and it's like all the same materials they use to customize all of our cleats and everything. And we got to sit down with some of the kids there, and it was a lot of fun connecting with them and hanging out. Yeah, we talked about why they wanted to paint the shoes the way they did. It kind of gives you a little bit more, when somebody can express why they're doing something, it gives you a little bit more insight into their life. And so it was great to get with them, and KB Foundation's awesome, and I'm really loving being a part of that.
Are you like a sneaker guy? You sneakerhead at all?
I'm not a sneakerhead.
No.
There are guys on the team. I mean, I like sneakers. I like the way they look. I just haven't gotten into it as much as I probably would have liked.
Sure.
But they all knew way more than me.
Well, you hang out with these guys enough, you'll start picking it up. Then you paint the sneakers, auction them off. That was for charity. That's a pretty cool little thing. But you're also, for auction, you're gonna sort of like rent out your services for a while? Like, what goes into that too? What are you gonna do there?
Yeah, so we're auctioning. The last one we did, we just sold. It was basically a one-on-one punting lesson with me, and then it was a signed jersey, and I think this one coming up is a signed football, and the same thing. So it's another one-on-one punting lesson. It's it's for anybody who want to do it, but there's a lot of the kicking and punting world is starting to kind of ramp up a little bit. That's why you see so many good kickers like Jake Elliott, and a lot of these guys now are starting to get so good at such a young age that like in high school, all these kids are looking for places to go, and so I think it'd just be fun to. I do private lessons all the time, and so this is just one way to do it and have some fun with it.
So without giving away too much, like if I came to you for a private lesson and I know nothing about punting, where do you start? What's like the baseline that you try to get people comfortable with? The drop? Is it the drop?
It's the drop.
It's the drop.
I mean, but also you got to be at least somewhat, good and coordinated with your feet. If you've ever played soccer, that would help, just so you can actually see. But it's definitely not a requirement. A lot of guys never played soccer or anything that kick and punt. So, it's just, and then it's repetition. And it's, you can be taught everything in the world, but if you don't actually go out and do it, it's not going to be a whole lot of help.
You got to do a mile's worth of drops a day, right?
So,
and if you're not doing that, you're not going to become a world-class punter like Braden Mann. One other thing I wanted to ask you about this building. You have a unique perspective when you're watching things happen around you. What is it that makes this team so special, but also how do you think this year you can get back, the team can get back to their Super Bowl caliber ways they were a couple of years ago?
This is getting repetitive, I'm sure, but just having fun. I feel like when we, the first, 11 weeks of the season, we were having probably the most fun in the NFL. And it was, obviously you have more fun when you're winning, but it's kind of which comes first, the chicken or the egg, So I think it's the more fun you have, the more you win, the more you win, the more you have fun. So I think it's just about connecting and doing it as a team, as a unit. I think that a lot of good things are happening this offseason. Everybody comes in here pretty fired up every day. So that's really fun to be a part of. I'm really excited for this season.
How much are you guys going to miss Kelce and Cox, though?
A lot. Yeah, those were two guys that everybody looked up to in the locker room, regardless what position, how long you've been in the league, what your journey is. Those are two guys that everybody on this team knows. They did it the right way, and so we were all pretty bummed, but also happy for them in their careers. So
we already know BG's the loudmouth. So who's like the guy that's going to step up now and become the leader that Kelce was or Cox was? Who do you guys look to now?
A lot of guys. There's a lot of older guys in the locker room, so that's really good to have. And it's not just one leader. You want leaders on both sides of the ball, which I think there are. There's plenty of guys who have been on different teams, or like BG's been here for so long, and so it's good to have kind of both sides of that.
What we do here, since the show is called A Gallen of Questions, I carry around this can. Has questions in it. You want to knock a few out? See how many we get to?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure you got to run here. So got things to do.
Do you have a favorite punt? Yes, it is probably my banana punt I do. It's like a pooch punt. Yeah, and so the goal is to get it to move a lot in the air, going left to right. Okay. So it's one of those where you're like near the 50-yard line. You want to put them way deep.
I like that.
But you want to put a little action on the punt. That's my favorite.
Banana punt.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite punt like in your career, one that you remember the most? Be it like longest or the one you hit the best? You're like, man, that was a good one.
I think my longest 2 years ago in Denver. Of course, it was in Denver.
Right. Yeah, still up there.
It was in the 70s somewhere in there. So I was pretty pumped by that one.
That's awesome. Best sport outside of football?
Oh, basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Grew up a hooper?
Not so much. I played a lot in college, which I don't know if I should be saying that, but I played a ton of rec ball in college. So, teammate you would cheat off of during a test, Britton Covey. I think he has one of the highest Wonderlicks, I'm pretty sure, is what he was been telling people. So, I would definitely cheat off Britton.
You know his grandfather wrote a book?
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. What is the routine to keep your leg in top shape?
A lot of plyometrics. Okay. Yeah, a lot of like jumping and just doing explosive stuff. I think that speed helps. So.
Plyometrics.
Yes. Eagles going to Brazil for week 1. What's the coolest place you've traveled? Ooh, my wife and I went to Bora Bora for our honeymoon. That was, it was the best.
What kind of flight is that?
It was a few flights.
Several flights.
It was a few flights, yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get a couple more. Outside of you, rank your 3 favorite punters all time.
All time. Ooh.
Could be guys we've never heard of. It could, it's like guy who went to high school.
Shane Leckler's got to be my number one. I think he's the GOAT, and he went to Texas A&M, so that helps me.
Yeah.
I think Ray Guy is obviously in there. I don't know, you can leave it up to a bunch of guys for number 3.
Donnie Jones, former Eagles.
Donnie Jones.
There you go. What was your best subject in school?
Math. My mom was a math teacher.
Man.
I had to be good at it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's in your post-practice shake?
Post-practice shake. I think it's just like whey protein and almond milk.
That's it?
Yeah, I go pretty light on it.
Yeah, boring.
I'm not that much of a shake guy.
No kale or anything?
No, nothing crazy.
Kale guy?
No, I'm good on kale.
All right, we'll do 2 more. We got, which do you think you could punt the furthest? An apple, a potato, or a head of lettuce?
I feel like the head of lettuce is probably going to fall apart.
It could explode into a million pieces.
I think the potato's going to be the toughest, or like the hardest off my foot. I think I'll punt the potato the farthest probably.
Really?
I think
the
apple might explode too.
That's a good point.
So
yeah.
I might have to give that a try.
Especially with your power. I guess all 3 could. All right, last one. Let's see. One thing you always have to travel with is what?
My phone, I think. I mean, as basic as that sounds.
Someone else said a phone charger. I'm like, yeah, okay.
You can't travel with a phone charger if you don't have a phone.
That's too.
At least you can bum a charger somewhere, but
That's it right there.
You gotta have the phone with you.
Braden Mann, thank you so much, man. That was fun. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to A Gallen of Questions. My name is Pat Gallen, and last week I sat down with Sheil Kapadia from The Ringer's Philly Special podcast, one of the great podcasts out there if you're a Philly sports fan for sure. Now, we answered 20 Eagles questions for the offseason, and we really ripped through them pretty quickly, and there are a few that stood out to me where I wanted to give my thoughts a little bit deeper because it's the offseason. We've got some time now between here and the start of training camp, so it's a perfect time to do this sort of thing. The first one that I really wanted to go a little bit deeper on, because my answer, I think, differs from what Sheil said, and that is outside of quarterback and coach, so outside of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, which person or player has the most pressure on them? Sheil said Jordan Davis. Hard to argue. First-round pick of a couple of years ago, really faded down the stretch, hasn't been an impact player in the middle of the defensive line like I think the Eagles thought he would. That can change for sure this year, but my answer is twofold. Number one, I'm staying on the Eagles' defensive line, and I think there's a lot of pressure on Josh Sweat. I know he's back on a 1-year deal, but essentially it seems like the Eagles decided to take that route and go Josh Sweat over Hassan Reddick. And we know the depth really isn't there, I don't think, as far as pass rush is concerned. They signed Bryce Huff away from the New York Jets on a big 3-year contract. They're expecting big things from him, but I think this comes down to Josh Sweat being the player that he was a couple of years ago. Had 6.5 sacks last season, 11 the year before in the season that the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. So if he can be more like the Josh Sweat of 2 seasons ago rather than last season, that will be a huge key for the Eagles. And then, of course, on the offensive side, there's a lot of pressure on Cam Jurgens, and not because he may not be able to be a great center. He might just be average, whatever it might be. It's because the pressure is you're not Jason Kelce. You're not going to be a Hall of Fame level talent that can do things no one else can do. We know that's the case, but that doesn't mean there isn't some pressure on him. So I think more pressure on Josh Sweat than Cam Jurgens, but on the offensive side of things, certainly stands out that there will be for Cam Jurgens. The second question I wanted to get to, rank in terms of importance to the Eagles. You've got Dom DeSandro, Darius Slay, Jake Elliott, Cam Jurgens. In that order, that is the way Sheil Kapadia ranked those 4 players and personnel. And the more I thought about it, we kind of joked about it on the show last week that Cam Jurgens should be higher. I actually think he got this right because Dom DeSandro means a ton to this organization, as crazy as it sounds, so much so that they basically created a new role for him so that he could be more present on the sidelines in case something happens like it did last year when he got into that scuffle with the 49ers and then was kind of kicked off the sidelines. But DeSandro, Slay, Elliott, Jurgens, I think is probably the right way to put it. And that's crazy because I just said there was going to be pressure on Cam Jurgens, but I think he's going to rise to the occasion. He will not be Jason Kelce, that is for sure, but I think I would rank it in that way as well. Saquon Barkley. There was a question about him last week. Saquon Barkley will top 1,400 total yards, true or false? Now, I went back and looked last couple of seasons for him, his rookie year, over 2,000 total yards. Probably not going to get that kind of Saquon Barkley. But in 2019, 1,441 total yards. In 2022, he had 1,650 total yards. Last year, bad year for the Giants. Not a good team, not a good line. 1,242 total yards. Now, Shields said that he didn't think he would go above 1,400. He said between 12 and 1,300. I think I'm going to go 14 to 1,500. I'm a little bit more bullish on him because I think he just fits this offense so well. Can't wait to see what he's capable of with Kellen Moore in charge. And then the last question, most difficult game on the Eagles schedule. If you're looking at that schedule, there are some tough ones. Cincinnati is the one that Shield picked. That's week 8 on October 27th. But my pick is there's a crushing group of games. Week 10 in Dallas, Week 12 in LA against the Rams, and then it ends Week 13 in Baltimore against a really good Ravens team that has Super Bowl aspirations. That's on December 1st. I think that's the pick of this year for the most difficult game because that could be a make-or-break type game. If you win that, it could really send you in a different direction. So we will see some tough ones, though, on the schedule this year. Week 1. They go right to Brazil. That's a tough one. But I'm looking at Baltimore, Week 13 on December 1st. But they're all important if you're an Eagles fan, of course. My name is Pat Gallen. This has been a Gallon of Questions. As always, I appreciate you watching. And thanks again to Braden Mann for hanging out with me this week. See ya.